You guys wanted to learn how to make this quilt that I made here. No pattern needed. I made it using a jelly roll. And today I put together a video for you to show you step by step how I made this. You don't need a pattern for this one. I used one jelly roll for the top of this quilt. Obviously, I'm gonna need more fabric for the backing, the binding, and all that. So I'm in the process of doing the long arm work. Today's video is all about making this cute top. Like I said, no pattern needed. You just need a jelly roll and a 60-degree ruler. So for this, I knew I wanted to pair my jelly roll strips. You need to put them in pairs of 2, and I did one light and one dark. So I opened them up, laid them all out, sewed all of my strips together in sets of 2. And that actually took way less time than I thought it would. Okay, now that we're sewn together and we've got all of our jelly roll strips, we need to cut them all apart. So you take your 60-degree ruler and lay it on there, and you cut out a triangle. Then you turn it the other direction, and you cut out another triangle. Now this should give you 12 triangles. You will end up with 6 of each one. So I have 6 of the white on the top and the pink on the bottom, and then I have 6 of the pink on the top and the white on the bottom. You want to keep those same 6 triangles together. Now you're just going to want to go ahead and start all of your strips cut out using this 60-degree ruler the same way. You just flip it over and you just keep cutting. So let's get all of these cut, and then we're going to meet back up at the sewing machine. Okay, now to sew these together, you're going to take 3 of each one. So you've got piles of 6. So you're going to take 3 and 3, and you're going to match them up where the seams are, right in the middle. And I like to use a pin to hold them together because that just helps with accuracy. You don't have to, but I like to. Now go ahead and sew that together, and then you can open it up and you can add one more on either side. And again, just match up your seams, and you're not going to sew all 6 together. You're going to do 2
now you're
sets
just going to continue
3.
sewing.
So essentially
all of
right
your
now
half
we're just
hexies
making
together.
all
So
of
you've
these
got
half hexies.
It should look
because
just
then
like
when
that.
we go to put them
And now we're
together
gonna
on
make
the
the other
quilt top,
half
it'll
of that
all make
hexie.
sense. Then you're going to take your other pile of 6, and you're going to make 2 more half hexies. And they're going to be opposite of this, where this one has the orange in the middle. The orange will be on the outside edge. And you just want to keep those pairs together. So once you're finished up with sewing that other half, I just like to lay my 2 hexies next to each other to make sure everything looks good, it's lining up. And then I just put one on top of the other and set them aside, and I sew all the rest of the hexies. Now that all of our half hexies are sewn, and you know what, I did press all of my seams as well, so that they're laying nice and flat, so it makes it easier to sew this together. But now I'm laying it out on my design wall. I have no idea how I really want this to look. So I start by just laying them out, putting the 2 half hexies together, because that is what is forming our rows. And once I get this all laid out, then I can move things around and decide what I want where and how I really want this to end up. I always make sure I don't have 2 of the same right next to each other. You can lay this out any way you want. Once you're happy with how everything looks, then it's going to be time to sew those rows together. So here we've got it all laid out. This is my final layout. I've moved it around a bunch of times because I overthink everything. But now we're going to take and sew the half hexies together in rows. So I like to take mine down from the design wall and stack them in the order I want to sew them. Now, just don't mix this part up, because you could sew them the wrong way and then they would all be backwards. So don't do that, and I'm saying that from experience, because that's what I did. And I had to completely seam rip 2 rows because I didn't pay attention. So pay attention to how you take them down and make sure you sew them in that same order. So we've got individual rows here. I just took down the top 2. And now the trick is how you lay them out. They're not going to lay straight across. So you lay them at an angle like this, and then you sew from one point to the other. When you lay them like this, the top of your triangle on the top there should be hanging over that edge just by about 1/4 of an inch, because of the angle you're sewing at, and you're sewing with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So when you do that, it makes it so that they line up nice and straight, which is what you want. So we open this up and take a look. Did we get it to be nice and straight? Yes, we did. I'm looking at that bottom seam. It looks great. So now we're going to lay the other one the opposite direction. Okay, right sides are together, and we've got that 1/4 of an inch overhang on the top of the triangle, and we just stitch along that edge, And then we just continue this process for each row. So I like to sew a couple of rows together this way, and then I sew the actual rows together. I like to sew from the top down, but again, there are no rules. You can do whatever process works best for you. It doesn't matter as long as you keep your rows matched up. So lay the rows out and make sure they all match up, that our seams look good. And then we're going to put these two right sides together. And again, I'm going to pin, and I pin at each seam. So that gives better accuracy. Trust me on this one. Again, I know I say there are no rules, and there aren't. You don't have to pin. But I can tell you from experience, if you pin, your points will match up better and it will look better because everything stays where you want it to stay. And then you're making sure it's all matching up where you want it to, because the hexies are pretty obvious when they don't perfectly line up. And not that mine are perfect by any means. Some of mine are still a little bit off, but pinning gives you the best end result. I also like to use magic pins, and I like to use the really thin ones because you know what? I sew over pins, and it just is something that when I was taught how to sew in home ec back in 1989, we were taught to sew over pins, and it's a habit I have never really broken. Sometimes I pull them out, but sometimes it just slows me down and I just keep going. And so these magic pins are really thin and skinny, and my machine sews beautifully over them. You don't have to. You can pull them out if you want. We all do what works best for us. Now here we are with the finished quilt top. Isn't this so much fun? I just love it. That's how we make the top. No pattern. You just sew your jelly roll strips together, cut them, sew them back together, and make all these beautiful hexies. Lay it out however you want. I like to lay mine up on the design board and then really stand back and look at it to make sure everything makes sense, like my colors are in the right spot. Sometimes I'll take a photo, turn it to black and white to see really where are the darks and the lights. Turning your photo to black and white is a really good trick when laying out a quilt. So I hope you guys will make one of these. I can't wait to see what you do. And I'm going to share another video of how I do the binding because like we can see, our edge is not perfectly straight here. So I'm going to do a binding tutorial for you and show you how we finish this one up. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're not already so that you don't miss out on any of the videos we have coming up.